Welcome to the On Record podcast, a podcast where we talk with professionals and other various subject matter experts from diverse markets that are using video and audio in innovative ways to support their organization's objectives. My name is Andy Simmons, and my co-host is Mike Anzalone. And today our guest is Danny Opperman, who's the Director of Clinical Simulation Education at the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. Danny, how you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Why don't you take just a couple minutes to introduce yourself, kind of maybe a little bit about your background and how we got here today.
Sure. My background started in the Air Force, where I became a medic, and I transitioned to civilian EMS, where I've been involved in EMS in various capacities for over about 20 years, management, education, provider, things of that nature. So, and then in my educational process, I got involved in simulation, and I've been with it ever since. And little did I know at that time that simulation would be a passion of mine. And here I am, where I've transitioned from paramedic simulation to medical school, nursing school simulation. So it really, simulation is a serious passion of mine. I like to write about it. I like to be educated and to provide education to the simulation community.
What is it that makes simulation such a passion of yours? What is it about simulation that kind of piqued your interest?
It's funny because when I was a learner, I hated simulation. Hated it because it was something different. It wasn't something that I guess that was exposed to me in the right manner. So it was, a mannequin would be put in front of you and people would be watching you, and you would be given this situation where you had to be put on the spot. And I felt like since I got to experience that negativity, I felt like it was a duty of mine to change that perception, because I know there are learners still to this day who will walk into a simulation room and be afraid and don't want to do it. And I think it is our job as providers and educators to change that reality and that perception to where they understand this is a safe space, learn to make mistakes here and not, on a real patient. So I like to change that narrative, and I think we're doing a better job of it. But that's was a direct relation to that. How can we change that perception?
Can I ask one more follow-up to that part? Was what is it that? What were the negative aspects of your experience? Like specifically, were there some things that we should all probably learn from? Any listeners that hear this? It's like, if you're doing this, maybe you're kind of doing your students a disservice. Is there one or two things you could point out?
Yeah, so I think what it is it almost it's like getting called out in a classroom by your teacher and answering a question. You have to stand up, and all their eyes are on you, and it's putting you in the spotlight, whether or not you are competent enough to complete that particular simulation. So I think that that's how it gets reiterated into a simulation space. At times it can be felt the same way. If you're put on the spot, you're put to the test on whether or not you're really competent to complete that particular simulation. So I think what we have to do as educators is really do a better service in making sure that they're competent, not just a baseline competency, but as one of my mentors say, is really fond of a competency-based education, where we're making sure that we're testing learners over time, building on the foundation, scaffolding, as you will, that knowledge. So that is something really important, I think, that we have to do as educators, is that slowly introduce to them topics over time and build on those principles or foundations of information to where they're more comfortable going into a simulation room and being confident that they can actually do the skill or the simulation and not just be worried about what people think of them.
So, Dan, you mentioned you have background in EMS and nursing simulation and medical simulation. What are the similarities and differences between those three disciplines in terms of the types of simulation scenarios that you're running?
Uh, I think the very first thing I can think of is setting. So whether if we're doing EMS, we could be in various settings outside. We could be in public buildings, patients' homes. Uh, the list could go on and on. When we talk about nursing, we're primarily going to be in a subacute setting, maybe an ER, nursing home, or or extended care facility. So the places are a little bit more narrow. But then when we get to medicine, especially here at PCOM, we always put them in a critical care setting. So usually emergency room, even maybe an OR setting. So in in dealing with these different disciplines, you have to learn to adapt quickly. And I think EMS is the most difficult because you're always making sure that your learners are immersed in the right situation and all the different various situations they could be put in. The nursing is really interesting aspect of it too, because I feel like nursing is provided the most diverse amount of skills as well. Where not to say that EMS and medicine aren't instructed a lot on particular skills, but nursing really gets down to the nitty gritty on how to do everything that a foundational nurse should know how to do, from, you know, rolling a patient, or cleaning them, bed bats, making a bed, all the way through critical care. So I feel like nursing really, really has an extensive array of skills that they have to learn through their nursing education.
And likewise, with these three different disciplines, what are in your experience, the various challenges from a video perspective? And do you use video in each one of these different types of disciplines?
So primarily in our medicine um, simulations, and we have standardized patient OSCEs, which is a different form of simulation. We use video very heavily. So we have somebody who sits in a control center, and we have 15 standardized patient exam rooms, OSCE rooms, and each room has 2 cameras. So our simulation tech has to monitor 30 cameras simultaneously. And although one camera is pointing to an SP, another camera is typically pointing to a student, but we have to make sure that the student primarily is always in view of the SP, so we can provide feedback to the student at a later time, and even feedback to our SP as well, because maybe they're doing something that they could do better or whatnot. So use of video in our medicine programs is heavy. Our students and faculty heavily rely on that feedback. Our other programs, nursing, is not so much, but it is still important. They use it as just for personal feedback. Where our medicine, they're actually getting graded. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's that important. So and for EMS, again, we typically will facilitate stuff for EMS outside the sim center. We have a mobile system that we can use if so, but primarily medicine is our heavy hitters with video and audio.
So you also mentioned um, the move to more of a competency-based educational framework. How how have you seen video supporting that framework? Do you use video to assess learners in various scenarios? Tell us a little bit about that.
I believe that debriefing, using like a video in a debriefing session, is really good. Although it can be time consuming, setting up the video or going back to certain parts and making notes on which parts to go back to. So if the facilitator, the debriefer, is not comfortable using the video to go back to different parts, it can become cumbersome. But I do like personally using video for debriefing, but for competency-based education, it's really important for our learners to see themselves over time as they're first introduced to patients or a mannequin simulation, and just see their growth over time and how they're provided the amount of information during their coursework, and see how they progressed. And they can watch themselves, they can take notes, and then they can better themselves for their very next OSCE or simulation. So video is critical in our daily simulation centers, and I oversee 3 simulation centers. PCOM has our flagship campuses in Philadelphia, but we have 2 in the state of Georgia as well, outside of Atlanta and South Georgia. So we're on all 3 of our campuses. Our system is critical, and if it's down, we have support that we make sure that it's up and running, because we cannot move on without it.
Mm-hmm. Are all 3 campuses kind of tied together on a video platform?
Yes. Yeah. So we're all tied together on one, and then we have our branches for each particular campus. And that's even somebody's, one of my co-directors, Amy, helps manage the logistics for our video platform. So that's her primary job. She inputs all the learners' names so they can go back and watch their videos later. So all their videos are tied to their accounts.
Thinking back to like your negative experience when you first went through simulation, and then your goals of using simulation and video both like for and of learning, how do you kind of prep students to enter that world without being like anxious and looking at themselves on video or being recorded, even when you tell them like, hey, this is just for learning? So what does that look like? Because you also want to be efficient with their use of time. You only have limited time with students. So how do you kind of like prep students to enter that world?
Enter the world of being recorded.
Yeah, which is probably new to a lot of people when they first get into a nursing program or something.
It is. So we really start with when they come to our school as like a student tour. So we really expose them early. Our university really is big on doing student tours, and their first stop is always the simulation center. They love to come through the simulation center to get that, come to our university, because look at all the cool stuff that we have. So we really make sure that we let them know then that, look at all the cameras in the room, all the cameras all over the sim center, and this is to your benefit. So we let them know even before they're a student. Then again, as they're accepted students to our university, we make sure that we pre-brief them, appropriately in the very beginning before their first experiences. We provide videos that will go over the simulation experience and why they're being recorded and the benefits. And sure, they're nervous in the beginning, but when we have student ambassadors who provide some of these tours to the other students, some of the students will ask, well, how do you feel about being recorded? And what do you feel about watching the videos? And they'll admit that it's sometimes a little embarrassing, but ultimately they think it's a great tool for them to become better providers one day, and they're really learning from it. So I think that the positives outweigh the negatives, and they really look forward to watching their videos. And if they can't see one of their videos, they get very anxious and they want, can you help me find a video? I can't access it, or it's not working, the link. So they really do count on watching their videos.
The student ambassador, I could see that being really powerful. It's like with your kids, a parent can tell your kids something so many times, but if they see their friend doing something or they hear from their friends, it can be way more powerful.
Exactly.
One of the things that we commonly hear with video is it's a very technical kind of application, and yet we also hear, on the other hand, is it should be really easy to use, because during that simulation event, right, there's so many potential moving parts. There could be an instructor in the control room watching and observing what the learners are doing. There could be the sim tech that's controlling the mannequin and all of that. How do you, in your experience, how have you been able to balance the notion of ease of use with technical sophistication of those video systems?
We really make sure that our team is involved in the day-to-day use of our system. So when it comes to our AV platform that we use, we have bi-monthly meetings with that company. So we make sure that our team is fully involved in any updates that happen or any challenges that are that the company is facing that they're aware of. And if we do submit tickets, we actually go through those tickets every 2 weeks, and we determine what the status is, what they did to fix them, what we may have had to do on our side. So that's really helpful for us, is that the company actually meets with us for about an hour every 2 weeks to really go through that stuff. So we're at least always on the up and up for that system. We also make sure that when because we have co-ops and work studies that work with us, and they change routinely. So we make sure that our team is fully informed on all the AV all the AV knowledge that they need to know. So whether or not that they have to do some professional development with it, because they're constantly having to teach our co-ops and work study team members on how to also use the AV system. So between our company meeting with us and our team doing professional development, make sure that they're fully aware of any changes and maybe latest updates. I feel like our team is very proficient in the AV use. And that's actually, when we recruit new sim techs, we prefer that they have an AV background, IT background. So even if they're not maybe AV proficient, they will easily learn it and be able to use it.
Mm. How many users are actually use the video system outside of, let's say, the students?
Let's see. I have one on each campus, one primary user on each campus uh, that kind of helps oversee us. And then I have 2 remote people that work on our team who will assist with any type of our programs. And then I have between the 3 other campuses, about 5 other people who routinely use our system. And that's full-time people. That's not even including co-ops or work studies.
That sounds like a pretty large staff compared to other clients that Andy and I speak with. What kinds of challenges do you experience in kind of bringing that team together so everyone is kind of like on the same page, using video for the same purposes and objectives?
So it really helps Amy, who oversees that platform, really as the leader of that, really helps make sure that we're all on the same page, and our chief as well. Although I'm the director for simulation, I do report to a chief of simulation operations, who's like a dean level status, and between the 3 of us, we really make sure that we operate, although we're 3 campuses, we operate as one. So we meet regularly, and as a whole team, all 3 campuses, we meet once a week to make sure that we're always doing the same thing. So if a student has to not transfer, but go to another university or campus for a specific reason, maybe it's because of a clinical site rotation and they have to go back to campus for something, they're going to get that same exact experience on that campus than they did on their home campus. So we really operate as one university, even though we're 3 campuses. So we just make sure that we write guides for everything that we do. When we run an OSCE simulation, there's a guide that our team follows, and that we make sure that it's done perfectly. So if one of our team members also has to travel to another campus, it's going to be done exactly the same way. So we really try to follow a best practice model, and by following the guidelines that we have put in place for these type of events.
For our listeners who may not be familiar with the term OSCE, could you define that and kind of talk about its relevance in both from a medical education and a nursing education perspective?
Yeah, sure. So it's funny when I first got this job, and there was a lot of talk about OSCEs, and I had to look up the word myself because I have no idea what an OSCE is, and it seemed fairly simple looking at it, but I was like, where did they get this term OSCE from? So OSCE, referring to OSCE, Objective Structured Clinical Exam. So and I always put it simply as the experience that you get when you go to the doctor's office, where you sit on the exam table on that crunchy plastic, and the doctor gets to ask you questions and examine you, does a physical exam. That is essentially an OSCE. And at PCOM, our students do them routinely. I would say anywhere between 3 and 5 a month sometimes, depending on what they're learning in the classroom. And those OSCEs basically are parallel to their curriculum in the classroom. So if they're learning cardiovascular in the classroom, their OSCEs are going to relate to um, uh, questions related to cardiac. They're going to be listening to heart sounds. They're going to be, everything that they do is going to be related to that. And the case may be angina case or congestive heart failure. So they're going to really have to put it all together in the classroom and then bring it to their OSCE, where now it starts to make sense. They learned about, assessing somebody's for a certain type of cardiac illnesses or disease processes. So, and then they have to write a note at the end and they only get 14 minutes with our standardized patient. And then they have only 9 minutes to write their note at the end. So it's very, very quick. And they have to really learn to get their thoughts together while they're talking to the standardized patient in the room during the OSCE. And then they really have to make sure that when they write their SOAP note at the end, that their ideas are formulated correctly, because all that gets graded. And then they actually have formative OSCEs and summative OSCEs, where they're scaffolding their information over time, and then at the end they have a summative OSCE where it's a high stakes exam.
So you're with a school, it's a school of osteopathic medicine,
Yes.
which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of think of that as holistic medicine.
Mm-hmm.
How would those scenarios, if they differ from what many people might consider traditional medicine,
Yeah.
if there's really a big difference?
So there's not, I would say, a significant difference, but there is a difference. And sometimes people don't know that there is a difference. For many years, I believe that osteopathic physicians and schools may have gotten a bad rap, you could say, because people just didn't know what osteopathic medicine is. And you're right, it is a little bit more holistic approach compared to allopathic schools or an MD school. But what some people don't know is that those schools are exactly the same in every way except for one. And that is, osteopathic schools teach an additional course or courses related to OMM, or osteopathic manipulative medicine. So you could think of it kind of like what a chiropractor does, where a chiropractor adjusts you. Osteopathic medicine is essentially that. Students learn to do manipulative medicine to where that is the preferred over, say, medicine or drug treatment therapy. Not that they're against medicine and drug treatment therapy, but what we refer to as a whole person approach, where they mind and body, and then work with medicine to come out to a desired effect. So it's just an extra approach to patient-centered care.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. When you use the word manipulative, I think of like physical therapy. Is
Yeah.
there kind of an intersection between
Right.
with
So
that?
they're using pressure points and pressing on certain parts of the body, nerve areas, to try and basically like a physical therapist, to heal the patient by manipulating the body in certain ways over a period of time to help heal the patient. And then what's helping the patient is not only are they getting better, but they're not introducing medications into the body, which if you're introducing medications to the body, you could also be creating other problems, by doing that. It's something as simple as Tylenol, and that's a big hot topic right now, Tylenol. But that's their that's their perspective, is that we try to eliminate introducing things to the body if we can use osteopathic theories and applications first.
Changing directions a little bit, before we hopped on the podcast, Dan, you mentioned, or we actually kind of crossed paths at a recent conference. Is it SimOps?
I was at SimOps. Yep.
SimOps. And you gave a talk. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what you were talking about?
Yeah, so one of my presentations, I ended up giving 3 while I was there, but my big presentation was integrating AI into building simulation cases, essentially. So when I wrote the abstract, I didn't know exactly how I wanted to integrate AI for optimal use, but I ended up deciding on showing everybody how to create their own GPT within ChatGPT, so it could save time, energy, and basically by preloading a bunch of information into your own GPT, and then once that all that information has been preset into the GPT, you can just put in a simple basic prompt. 50-year-old female, chest pain, history of congestive heart failure, and takes a couple medicines, and it will spell out a complete full-length simulation with every detail you can think of.
That's interesting. Is that simulation a clinical procedure oriented, or is it kind of like how to go about conducting a patient encounter scenario?
So it's going to be from the simulation operator's perspective. So basically, the information that you're going to get is how to set up the simulation, what props to use, the setting that you're going to do it in, learning objectives. It will create at a minimum 3 learning objectives from this particular prompt, and it'll provide a full set of vital signs, a full set of what you could say is different phases that the simulation would go through. So where they might start out as a stable patient, and then between phase 1 and phase 2, they may have some type of medical condition where the learners will have to intervene and provide an intervention, whether it's medication or using some type of equipment. And then the third phase will be basically the patient either deteriorates or gets better after the interventions that have been applied by the learners. It will also provide lab values. It could give, although it doesn't give radiology images, it can describe what an image should look like. If you could find one, this is what it would recommend. So, and even some moulage, if there's an application where the patient could be moulaged, maybe some light cyanosis around the lips, or they could look very diaphoretic, it would put that in there as well. So basically give the educator and the facilitator everything that they need to prepare a simulation case for learners.
Oh, okay.
Is this something that you actually are using at your school, or just something that you kind of working on the side and considering for usage, or where's this at?
It's something I was working on the side. We have a team of faculty members who create cases that they like to use, but our cases here at PCOM, I don't want to say they're simple, but they have certain objectives that they need to meet in their first 2 years that they see us here in the simulation center. We're trying to get them in for a third year, but they're in rotations at third and fourth year. So we can't get too complicated in our simulations. And these particular cases that the GPT writes can get very in depth.
Yeah.
So I had gotten the idea because there were some other directors who work at other universities who also had similar ideas, who also have written similar GPTs. One was for nursing, one was for medicine. But my goal was to show how to show the audience how to write one themselves for their university. So I could write one, and like these other couple people have done, but the GBT would be then to my standards.
Mm-hmm.
And although that's great and maybe that would be useful, but I think what would be more useful is if I show you how to write your own GPT, you can put in your own standards from your own university or your own hospital, your own templates. And that way it can build your scenario, not some other university's template scenario. So in some applications, that's great. But I think in most applications, you want what is to your standards, not somebody else's standards.
Before we wrap up, Dan, how do you see AI impacting the video aspect of what you're doing?
So we're looking at AI now. We haven't integrated really anything with AI yet, just because there are still some issues. It's still not 100% reliable. But we've looked at AI not to replace standardized patients, but to give as an alternative to a standardized patient. Could we put an AI microphone in the room and put that in 15 rooms, because that's how many OSCEs we have? Could we put it in 15 rooms and all 15 rooms provide the same exact feedback to the learner? If the learners were to ask similar questions, would they get that same experience? And using that in conjunction with our video, it has the potential to be great. It really does. Do we lose some human factors? Yes, we do. So it's not a replacement by any means, but I definitely think that it's something that we could use in conjunction with simulation. So, God forbid that we ever have another pandemic, but you put an AI microphone in your home because you can't leave for some reason. Maybe you're traveling, or you're not near your school for some reason. We can really integrate an AI tool in conjunction with video. We can do it over Zoom because Zoom's encrypted. So we actually do some Zoom related things regarding our OSCEs. But I think that it really does have a lot of potential, but there's a lot of things that we have to figure out first with AI. But I really do see in the next few years that AI will almost be standard in simulation. I think it just has, as quickly as it moved, I think it'll be sooner than later.
It'll be interesting to see how it evolves. And you're right. It seems to be every couple weeks you hear about a new innovation in AI as it continues to improve. It's fascinating and scary at the same time.
It is. I would totally agree. I use it all the time, but at the same time, I have to think hopefully this isn't going to destroy us.
Yeah. Right.
Danny, as we start to wrap up here, is there anything that we didn't discuss that you were hoping to talk about today? Anything you're actively working on? Problems you're trying to solve that we didn't talk about that you might want to bring up in our podcast?
Yeah. So the only thing that I probably would like to mention is that, like I have said, I was involved in EMS for a long time, and although I'm still a licensed paramedic, I'm not active anymore. But I do like to provide back to the paramedic and EMS community. I'm speaking at a conference in November, at an EMS conference, and my focus is really soft skills and leadership. So I'm actually completing a doctorate degree. I'm almost done. I'm in my research phase with Thomas Jefferson University here in Philadelphia. And my theme is using simulation for EMS practitioners who are transitioning from provider to a leadership position. In my experience, and I was in leadership in EMS, and I didn't do great. I loved EMS. I loved EMS management, but I struggled as a manager in EMS because there's a lot of different facets that are different than just being a manager elsewhere. Hence, why I am now is great, but as an EMS manager, there was a lot of struggles, and I found that the turnover is high in EMS management, and that's because those providers who are transitioning into management positions aren't properly prepared. They're not trained well enough, and they're not prepared well enough moving into that position. It was a lot of on-the-job experiences and learning I had to do. And although I did great with some things, communication skills was a struggle, and how to talk to people and deal with difficult conversations. So I made it my mission to do my thesis and my research in using simulation for soft skills and leadership training. So that's what I really like. That's what I'm passionate about right now is EMS, and specifically leadership and soft skills capabilities. And I think that could be applied anywhere, not just in EMS. But I really feel that there's so many books on leadership and management, and I like to read them. I'll read them all just because I feel like it makes me a better leader. But they all have similar themes, and I think simulation could really be a really good tool to use. So we reduce turnover, and we keep people involved in doing what they love and not having to move on to something else just because they weren't trained well enough or they weren't prepared well enough.
Well, you seem like a very good communicator and leader to us. So sounds like from your own admission that you've come a long way.
I've read, I think hopefully all the books I read did something.
Well, that's awesome. This has been a fantastic conversation, Dan. How can our listeners get in touch with you if they've got some questions, and particularly if they're exploring the world of EMS and simulation? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you just search for my name on LinkedIn, I will pop up. I do write for healthysimulation.com as well. I do put out articles for them as well. My contact information is on there, but you can also reach me through my university email, danyop@pcom.edu. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions or help out with anything.
Well, thanks for your time. This has been, again, a great conversation.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
On Record is a podcast presented by Intelligent Video Solutions, hosted by Mike Anzalone and Andy Simmons, and produced by Kyle Shellstad. Find us online at ipivs.com/onrecord and on social media at Intelligent Video Solutions.